Welcome back, everyone, to the MACC podcast. It's Laurel Hansen, MACC's Program and Member Engagement Manager, with another episode of Ask MACC Workforce Podcast, brought to you by the Metropolitan Alliance of Connected Communities. Interested in checking out more of our podcasts and nonprofit workforce resources? Visit our Workforce Hub on the MACC website. As our listeners know, MACC has been strategically focused on the well-being and the resilience of the human services workforce. The people who do the work of our nonprofit organizations are very important to us and to the communities we serve. We can't do what we do without them. On today's episode, we're having a conversation with the one and only Jean Loyd. I'm very excited. Jean is an important voice to know via her work as Real Life, Real Talk, and we're going to learn more about that. She is a certified transformational coach, group facilitator, public speaker, and published author. And we were grateful for Jean when she hosted a workshop at MACC's recent member summit. So we're going to continue that conversation. And on this podcast episode, we're talking about something critical for our times, because the times they are kind of wild right now. How our values can support our boundaries and safeguard our identities. So please welcome Jean to the MACC podcast. Hey, Jean, thanks for being with us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to connect and talk with you again. All right, so we've got a lot to talk about. I always say, "Oh, it's just going to be a few questions." Well, I had so many questions for you, so let's get started. Tell us about your organization, Real Life, Real Talk, and how do people engage with you, and how do you engage with our community through your work?
Okay, thank you so much. So, Real Life, Real Talk got started um, as I was doing the work, working with nonprofit, and many of the women I was talking to had questions, had hurt, had past things they hadn't dealt with, and I wanted to create this space where we didn't find blame, but we begin to get curious and understand and then find out what were we holding on to that we could now release, and we were now responsible for the decisions we were making. So that's how it got started. And it started off with Tuesday talks with Jean. And then we moved, then I had this revelation, real life, real talk. And so that is how it started. I engage with community by being invited. A lot of it is word of mouth. I do community events and outreaches, and I like to facilitate conversations as well as I like to do a lot of one on one where we can go deeper and be a little bit more transparent at times than we would in a group.
That sounds lovely, and we'll make sure when we publish this episode that we provide a link so folks can find you as well.
Okay.
And so through our chats, I know you've had a lot of experience in our nonprofit field. So just to kind of set a baseline for folks to get to know you, how have you intersected with human services and the nonprofit sector?
So when I first read that question, I was like, what does that mean to me? Like
Mm.
how is it intersecting?
Hmm.
Um and the
I know
best
in
way I
your
guess I can really
career,
talk.
right, you've worked with even some MACC members in the past.
Yes. So I think what it is for me is that when you're working with other human beings, right, you get an opportunity to see the transformation in people's lives.
Mm.
So I would say that's really how it intersects, especially even new members when you enter into a new membership or you enter into a new job or for our participants, they enter into this new program. You really don't know each other. And so this is this opportunity to find out how can I trust them, but how do I trust myself as
Mm.
well in this intersection?
Hmm.
Like, because the reason we come to the jobs or the reason we come to the programs is not that we need to be fixed, but that we also have something to offer.
Oh,
If
it's
that makes
beautiful.
sense. Yeah.
So at our most recent summit, I mentioned that you did a workshop, a highly rated workshop, might I add.
Mhm.
You spoke about values, and that was
Mhm.
kind of where we started. Values being a form of self care. So let's get into that. How is that
Okay.
sort of self awareness and knowing our values? How is that a form of self care? Because I know everyone listening today didn't have the benefit of attending your workshop.
Okay. Well, here's how it started for me. I was a part of the JP Shannon leadership group through Wilder
Oh yeah.
back in 2018. And I remember when we started it, they said a couple of things were bound to happen. Many people either changed jobs or they got a divorce. And we were like, wait, what? Um, but why that was said is because you had to really look at how you had been showing up and living out what I had considered to be life, right?
Mhm.
And what I discovered is I was doing a lot of existing.
Oh.
Things had become mundane, it was okay, you know what you're gonna do. You get in the car, you drive to work, okay, I'm gonna see this person. But where was the excitement at? Where was the life in that? And was I paying attention?
Mm. So relatable.
Yeah. So when that happened, I started thinking about what have I just become accustomed to? What is and in this world we hear a lot about hard work and grind, no sleep, no rest. That is not wise. You actually do more healing when you step aside from the work for a moment, when you step aside and leave things alone so that you can come back with a peace, with a clear vision. And furthermore, one of the things that I really discovered is I didn't have to do life alone.
Mm.
In our agencies and in many um, arenas, there's this ideal of independence. Be independent. Well, that's a good way to go nowhere, or at least not far. I won't say nowhere, but you won't go far. And what'll happen is the more independent you become, the more isolated you become, the lonelier you become, and the more you have to depend on yourself.
Well, you're speaking Max world here, because that is actually our tagline, is that together we're stronger, right? As a network.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. Yeah,
yes,
we learned from your presentation about exploring our values and understanding how we show up for ourselves and for others, right? In relationship with
yes.
others. And so, yeah, I think I'm interested in hearing some more from you on that. Like, what is this big, what are the impacts that you can have at work and in your workplace in particular when we're really invested in our own values?
Well, when you take a look at, so when we did the values workshop, one of
Hmm.
the things we did is there was, I believe, 12 of them. And in reality, there's more than 12 values in life. But, okay, like, are you adventurous? Are you a risk taker? Do you like structure? Um, is spirituality important to you? Is family important to you? When you look at your values, you begin to really see if this is a value for me. If I say family is a value, but I'm always at work,
Mm.
and when the children do come to me, I say, not right now. Mommy's got to finish this, or mommy will be with you in a minute. And before you know it, that minute turns into an hour. That hour turns into a day. And so we're putting off what we say is important. And many people find out that children are going to keep growing.
Mhm.
Family, me and you have talked about this. Our parents are there, but they're aging, right?
Mhm.
Even myself, I could go out here and be in a car. There's no guarantee that my family gets to see me again. But I say that's important. This is not to sound doom and gloom, but what I found is when you pay attention to the values, you have an opportunity then to be present, to get curious, and just be observant with how is my life going.
Yeah, I love that. I love that sort of exploration and alignment. So like if it, like I just took so much away from um that workshop with you about self-awareness and values, and how often do we really take a minute to even figure out if what we're doing and who we are, is it all aligned? And um boy, when it is aligned, it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the one thing too that I found out is we don't have to condemn ourselves,
Mm,
and nor do we have to compare ourselves.
mm.
I have people around me who have skill sets that are awesome in like organization, uh, leading a organization well. Like I lead myself fairly well most days, but it
Ah,
takes another skill set to lead an entire organization and be responsible for decisions you have to make. And now, so how do we support one another without comparing ourselves to one another, especially in this nonprofit agency, um, where it tends to give off this appearance that there's a scarcity when really we are the resource. There's so much
mm.
value there.
Wow, Jean, that you just hit the nail on the head, right? And it
Hmm.
sometimes it's hard for even the world that supports us around us as nonprofits to even recognize that we are the resource.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And we all, gosh, it's so relatable. We all understand that scarcity mentality. Um, and we certainly have an opportunity to look at it differently and have that be colored by our values.
Yes, one of the things that I have really enjoyed about uh, being in the nonprofit, especially with, in particular, because I have been at Simpson for years, is the way that they do the work that they do. Thinking about what does it mean to be in partnership? What does it mean to be in collaboration? And thinking about how they have even used real life, real talk uh, with group within the agency with
Mhm.
facilitation,
Yeah.
having those difficult conversations, not shying away from them. And I think that's what happens sometimes is we get so used to, I got to make this happen. I got to make this work, that we forget that we are in this together and we're human and that we all have something that matters to us.
Wow. If listeners take one thing away from today, that is such an affirming uh, message. And thank you, Jean. I'll take that away today as well. And shout out to Simpson, Mac member, awesome Mac member. Gotta love it. All right. Well, let's go a little bit further.
All right.
Because we kind of know that today's day and age is so challenging, right? I think it's fair to say we're in a very challenging time as nonprofits and as individuals. Um, so I think one of the things I wanted to talk about today is how values can serve as a compass, right? So there are all sorts of things going on: identity based attacks, marginalization. It's tough, right? So how can values help us navigate um, such a difficult environment right now?
Well, I think you touched on it when you talked about identity. For many of us, we have identified with systems, expectations of others. but we have not really identified with how do I fit in? Who am I? I mean, because even when you think about an entire body, the body functions together. Now, the more that, it's the same thing for me anyway, when we talk about scarcity and, oh, this is so hard, the more that you have that mindset, the more that you kind of look for problems.
Mm.
Now, I'm not saying they don't exist,
Hmm.
but there's also solutions always. And so, as I said before, one of the things that I like about Simpson is, okay, what can be a possible solution? And if we have a different way of viewing something, what will be the impact? Because
Mm.
I'm not so sure that, and not to be political, but some of the language that's out there is to keep us on this hamster wheel of
Oh,
looking at each other as the enemy.
so true.
And so when I look at you as an enemy, then I'm never going to collaborate with you because I don't trust you. All the
Yeah.
wars, everything that we've had has been about I don't trust you. So how does values fit into that? For most of us, we're not going to do away with our family, right? We might have hard conversations with them about racism, economics, how they view other people, but our families are our families, right? So how do you begin to really look at family? Look at your place in family and ask yourself honestly, what have they contributed to my life? What works for me? And how can I carry on in this life and view people from a different viewpoint? How do I begin to really have critical conversations and critical thinking? So my values, I have to look at them. Again, it goes back to if I say family is important, what about family is important? When is too much too much? When do I need to step aside for a moment? If I
Sure.
say if I say spirituality is important, what does that look like? So the values means I'm going to have to go deeper than the surface level of, yeah, this is what I like. What does it look like? How
Yeah.
does it show up? And how do I engage with it?
Yeah.
I
That's so
hope that makes
important.
sense.
It absolutely. I think how we respond and how we navigate and how we proceed is definitely colored by our values. Something else that is colored by our values, I think, are boundaries. And to me, they feel like one informs the other, right? And there seems to be that relationship between values and boundaries. And when we're talking, because we're talking about the current challenging environment,
Mhm.
um, where we really are seeing people's identities under attack, we I feel like boundaries are really critical for safeguarding people and in a way that they how can they protect their identities. I think that is kind of the question, how can people's values help them live safely in today's world? And do you have any thoughts on that, what is that link between values and boundaries and how that can make a difference for folks who might feel under attack?
That's an interesting question for me.
It's
And
a
I know
lot, right?
I remember that we talked before. And for me, using the word boundaries, when you think of boundaries, and now I'm not saying that there shouldn't be protective measures, but when you think of boundaries, what does that look like? Like,
Mhm.
is it somebody crossing a line with me? And then I want to talk about the way the way even programs are set up
Mhm.
when we talk about boundaries. I don't know if you've ever seen some of the paperwork people have to fill out. Even when you go to apply for a home loan, right? What are some of the questions? I mean, it gets really personal with people you really don't know. And yet you got to sit across from them and tell them many things that are personal. You're vulnerable. And then they make a decision. So here's how values works when I think of it often. Why would I give my power or have an expectation of someone else telling me what my life or what my value looks like?
Mm,
So, as a woman of color, let me be very honest. Uh, we've talked about having boundaries, and we talk about um, being open to others' opinions and how others show up, and uh, having open dialogue. But those conversations are sometimes uncomfortable.
mm-hmm.
And when does our communities really get activated?
Ah,
How much does something have to happen before we get activated? And the only reason I'm talking about this, because when we talk about boundaries, we can talk about them, but there's some things that it would almost seem as though you don't have permission in this world to really set up that kind of boundary.
yeah, I think that's so true.
I'll give you another example
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about boundaries. I own my own home, and yet Xcel Energy, and I get it, they needed to come in and put in a meter. But I didn't, but I called to find out, is this company that you sent over, is this the one that works for you? Because they don't have Xcel Energy's name. They have a different name, and this is what the truck looks like. And so the woman said yes to me. I said, okay. And I said, so is this something that's mandatory? Is this something that I have to have? And here's what she said to me. Well, we own the what did she say? We own the meters. I said, well, I get that. You may own the meter, but the meter's still in my house. So really, as we continued on, what she was telling me is you may own the house, but we can come in if we want to. Mm,
Now there's a real life example.
mm. So some boundaries were crossed there.
Every day, right?
Yeah. So we've been told if you work hard, that you'll get far in life. And for many people, they are very educated, and I appreciate and love education. But we have found out education alone don't necessarily get you as far as you want.
So you brought up an interesting idea, um, around what can we how can in some cases how can we resist, and where does the line between boundaries and resistance, and that's just on our mind a lot right now, in that we're in an environment where um, there are things we need to resist against, right? As nonprofit organizations, as individuals who um, might be in a role where we're in an activism place, right? Like we need
Mhm.
to collectively resist things that are being sort of oppressed on our communities. So, I think that is such an interesting question. Like, how can our values and our boundaries sort of impact those or direct those efforts of collective resistance? Which, when our organizations at MACC um, are lobbying for the things that are important for us, we are collectively resisting the changes that are occurring. Yeah, like, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, how can your values,
What
what
are the
role can
changes
your
you're
values,
resisting?
yeah, how can that, what role can your values play there?
So I'm going to ask this question. What are the changes that are being resisted?
Oh, so many, right?
Well, that's what I'm asking. What are they? What are you resisting? What am I resisting?
Mm-hmm.
You know that saying, what you resist persists?
No, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I hear it a lot in our community. What you resist persists.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm resisting something, what is it? What is it activating in me? What is it bringing up? What am I afraid of losing because I've held on to this for so long? So even in climates like this, one
Mm-hmm.
of the things that I'm sure that the government did not anticipate, which they typically don't, is how it can draw communities together.
Oh, that's lovely.
See, because one of the things that um, our ancestors and our forefathers had is that they had community. And I have really appreciated the way that this generation, so there's some things that I say I really appreciate, and there's some things I was like, woo, that's a bit too much for me, right? Because I'm a tad bit older, right? But one of the things that they have really stood up and said is, I'm not killing myself over no job. You're not going to work me and then just discard me. It is possible to still work and have a work life balance. And so being remote, being able to travel and to yet still work has opened up doors for many people that didn't have that opportunity previously. And
Sure.
so now what do you see our governments trying to do is demand that it go back to the old ways, demand that our rights be taken away. But one thing about it is once you have a taste of liberty, it's very hard to put people back into a place of bondage.
Right on. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. With that whole community being so critical for collective resistance, and again, that's what we see here at MACC when our network rallies. That we can at least make our best efforts, right, to resist and to be active.
And that part right there, because when you understand that you have value and that you're valuable and that you are a contributor to the whole, you show up differently. And in many
Absolutely.
ways, you demand respect, not because you say, you need to respect me, but your very presence, the very essence of who you are, steps into that room and says, I value me. Therefore, when I value myself, I can value others. I can see them differently because I understand that they too add value.
Wow. That's some powerful stuff, Jean.
Yeah. So that's
we
what it does, though. Really, it helps you get present. What does it mean to get present to it? What does it mean to get curious? Not fearful, but curious. And that means, again, leaning into what am I resisting? And why am I resisting? And is this something I need to resist? I don't need to fight everything. It's not even helpful for me.
Jean, I feel like that's exactly what we needed to hear today. Powerful words from Jean Loyd, real life, real talk. I think we'll wrap up our conversation
Thank
there.
you.
It's been a wonderful conversation with you today. I get so much about hearing from you and your own words. Somehow it makes things better. Appreciate you so much. I hope that MACC members and folks listening will take the time to learn more about Jean and real life, real talk, because she's the real deal. Thank you, Jean, for your time
Thank
and
you.
conversation with the MACC Network. It's been such a valuable discussion. I also want to thank the sponsors of our Workforce podcast today, the Mayor Prize and Schultz Foundations, who are supporting our work. Jean, thanks again. Listeners, we appreciate you. Don't miss MACC's monthly podcast downloads. We're on the Podbean platform or find them directly on MACC's website. You have an idea for a MACC podcast episode? Reach out. Look forward to hearing from you. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day and be well. Goodbye.